Let's bring in House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer. And that timeline, Congressman Comer, that Alex was just detailing for us, that was really detailed well in an article on Fox News Digital by our own Chad Pergram, basically saying, look, even if everything goes perfect from this point forward, we could still not pay a bunch of bills coming up in June. So what is your confidence level heading into what has to be, by all accounts, the most important week so far in this negotiation?
It is the most important week, and it's very unfortunate that Joe Biden has waited this long. This is another example of his lack of leadership. I don't know what he was expecting would happen. The Republicans in the House passed a bill in a timely manner, and the Senate Democrats and the president did nothing. And they've waited and waited and waited, and now we're past the deadline that we really needed to have presented a bill in a timely manner. Remember, House Republicans want to give everyone an opportunity to do the unthinkable, to give everyone an opportunity to read the bill so we can know what's in the bill, so the media can know what's in the bill. That's called transparency. Joe Biden's used to just being in a back room, smoke-filled room, and coming up with something at the last minute. But we're not going to budge on spending cuts. Somebody has to be the adult in the room, and I'm proud of the work that the House Republicans have done and Speaker McCarthy has done in presenting a fiscally responsible bill. I think that's what the American people want, and I know that's what the American taxpayers want.
Yeah, I mean, McCarthy basically said there's a glimmer of hope because there's a meeting set now, which, you know, that's more than what there was before. Let's just hope that a deal can be made with the best interest of the people in mind. But let's talk more about spending. President Biden is back in the U.S. after announcing an additional $375 million in military assistance for Ukraine. The president also said the U.S. will support a joint international effort to train Ukrainian pilots on modern fighter aircraft. That does include the F-16s. I want to play a soundbite from Jake Sullivan defending this. Listen.
The United States has mobilized an exceptional effort to deliver on time and in full everything Ukraine needs to launch this counteroffensive. Now that we've done that, we can look forward to the long-term capacity of Ukraine to be able to defend itself and deter Russian aggression. Fourth-generation fighter aircraft, Western fighter aircraft, F-16s are relevant to that fight.
You know, so previously Biden said he was not giving Zelensky these F-16s. He hasn't, you know, specified one way or the other. He has just kind of backtracked on it. But what's that signify to you, hearing all of this?
Well, first of all, as someone who's leading the Biden family influence peddling investigation, it's very difficult for me to listen to Jake Sullivan and Joe Biden continue to send American taxpayer dollars to Ukraine unchecked. Joe Biden has been meeting with world leaders. If he wanted to be the leader of the free world, he would try to put together a coalition like George Bush did when Iraq invaded Kuwait. But right now, we're footing the bill for Ukraine. And I can't say this enough. The amount of liability and conflicts of interest that the Biden family has with Ukraine is unimaginable. But aside from that, we're talking about trying to pass a fiscally responsible budget here. And Joe Biden continues to give Ukraine a blank check. And I understand that F-16 would help. But we've got to look at the end of the day, what is in the best interest of the American people. And again, I believe that Joe Biden should have exhibited leadership on the world stage and tried to make make our countries in Europe have more skin in the game. Right now, the United States is putting the majority of this bill, and I don't think that's what the American people would expect from the president. If you ask the American people, are you willing to sacrifice cuts to Social Security, cuts to Medicare to pay for this war in Ukraine? Overwhelming majority of Americans are going to say no.
You also wonder, for a war that is in Europe's backyard, to your point, why it seems like we continuously are sending, to your point, money for an endless war. I mean, there's no sense as to when this is going to be over. And to me, the combination of those two is the most concerning. I want to get your thoughts on this. Speaker McCarthy talked to FBI Director Wray on Friday, and McCarthy now says he thinks the FBI will hand over the document that you're requesting that allegedly implicates President Biden in a criminal scheme. Listen to this.
I want to be very clear with the FBI director that Congress has a right and we have the jurisdiction to oversee the FBI. This is one piece of paper that a chairman of a committee has requested to see. I explained to the director that we will do everything in our power, and we have the jurisdiction over the FBI, that we have the right to see this document. I believe after this call, we will get this document.
Literally no one better to answer this question. Do you agree with the Speaker? Will you get the document you have asked for?
I believe we will. We want more than the document. We want to know what exactly the FBI did to investigate this allegation. We're very confident this document exists. We want to know, again, what the FBI concluded with respect to this investigation, because the reason we're so concerned about this is because this fits a pattern of what we've seen in Romania and other countries around the world, where the president, then vice president, flew into a country, took an unusually active role in foreign policy in this particular country, was the lead person on foreign aid in this particular country, and then all of a sudden his family members start getting wires from foreign nationals from this particular country through these various LLCs and shell companies that the Biden family created. I mean, this is one of the most serious accusations I think has ever been leveled against any political leader in the history of our country. And for the FBI to act like, well, we don't know, we can't talk to you about this, just trust us. I mean, this allegation happened a long time ago, and the FBI has done nothing. We want to know exactly what they did. We not only want the file, but we want to know what action they took. So Speaker McCarthy called me after his conversation with FBI Director Wray. I appreciate the Speaker. He's leading on this issue. He's working with Republicans on the House Oversight Committee. So I have a lot more confidence today that we're going to get that Form 23 because of the work that Speaker McCarthy's doing.
Well, that's a positive note on that. Let's hope you get it, because I think that would really move your investigation even further along than it already has been. But we've got to talk about this. And we have talked to you about this on this show, about how the media can just not ignore this any longer. In an op-ed in the Washington Post, it says millions flowed to Biden family members. Don't pretend it doesn't matter. So do you think that because of your investigation, that is what's moved this needle with the media?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question. You look at the polling, and right now Donald Trump is 7 points ahead of Joe Biden and trending upward. Joe Biden's trending downward. And I believe that the media is looking around, scratching their head, and they're realizing that the American people are keeping up with our investigation, and they realize something's wrong here. It's not normal for the president of the United States, children and grandchildren and in-laws and nieces and nephews to receive wires from foreign nationals. That's what we've proven. And we proved that this happened while Joe Biden was vice president of the United States. That had never before been reported. And the media tried to not report on it, but the American people are keeping up with what we're doing. And the American people do not want to see public corruption. They expect Congress to investigate public corruption. That's what the Republicans on the House Oversight Committee are doing. And now I think you're seeing more and more mainstream media outlets start recognizing the fact that the American people are keeping up with this, and Joe Biden needs to answer questions, and he needs to do it now.
For me, that always begs the question. Are they actually just doing their job, which they should have been doing, and actually going along with what you are putting out there? Or is this an attempt to get rid of Joe Biden and put somebody else in there? That's a question I always have whenever there's anything negative from this so pro-Joe Biden media. It remains to be seen, Congressman.
I thought the exact same thing, but they do look ridiculous regardless, ignoring this. Congressman Comer, thank you so much for being with us.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.